A large number of inventions came to be during the medieval period. Given that the medieval period was marked by warfare throughout the different parts of Europe, most of the significant inventions of the period were directly or indirectly related to warfare. However, there were other inventions such as the clock, printing press, and architectural invention, which play a critical parts in shaping medieval Europe. Here are some of the important of those inventions from the medieval period.
The spinning wheel. The spinning wheel was originally invented before the medieval period but in Europe. It came to be widely used only in the medieval era. In contrast to the earlier spinning methods used in Europe, the spinning wheel was far more efficient and allowed a spinner to spin greater amounts of thread in less time. This finally made it possible for well-spun clothes to be worn by an increasing greater section of population in medieval Europe.
The gunpowder. Before the inventions of gunpowder, warfare in the medieval period remained more or less the same as the warfare in the antique period, although armors evolved significantly and weapons corresponded, and this evolution warfare still required men to ride on horses or close in for on-foot combat, while different weapons defend themselves with armor and face an enemy at close quarters. All of this changed with the invention of the gunpowder. Gunpowder had been invented in China as early as the 9th century but reached widespread use in Europe only by the 13th century, possible through the battlefield interaction with the Mongols. By the 14th century, gunpowder weapons were being used by European armies, and by the 15th century, this weapon had effectively replaced most of the conventional weaponry. The tidal mills. Tidal mills were an important medieval invention dating back to the 8th century. They were usually imbued near natural water bodies such as rivers and were driven by the high tides of the water body. In the countryside, such mills were frequently used to accomplish different mechanical tasks. The force of the water itself was used to drive the water wheel on its own. Such early use of mechanical energy can be seen as precursors to the use of the electricity in the modern period.
The mechanical clock. Until the High Middle Age, there was no accurate and accessible way of measuring time. People had to rely on natural phenomena, such as the movements of the sun, or contraptions such as the hourglass or calibrated candles. It was only in the 14th century that innovation in church bell ringing mechanism evolved to give birth to the earliest mechanical clocks. The first of these dates back to 1344, being used in a cathedral in Padua. In subsequent decades and centuries, clock began to become accurate, sophisticated, and compact in time. These clocks would give birth to pocket watches and more recent times to wrist watches.
The printing press was a very important invention in the medieval history, invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the 15th century in creating a printing revolution. The bases for the modern printing press were laid in 15th century when Johannes Gutenberg in Germany invented a unique printing press of his own. By using the prevalent printing mechanism, he used new methods and equipment to speed up and automate the process of printing. Before his press, books which had to be printed required a lot of labor and took a lot of time to make, essentially limiting the use of books to the rich and wealthy. The Gutenberg press became a precursor to cheaper printing presses which were established all over Europe and became one of the key inventions that made the European Renaissance possible.